Today we're going to be working in Blender and answering a question from Joe Steger. If you haven't seen his website, he does a lot of great videos on YouTube regarding Linux, little tips and reviews and stuff. He requested a video on how I do my little back and forth text like that I end pretty much all my videos with. And the truth is, I actually made that 7-8 years ago, and I made it in 3D Studio Max before I started using Linux and open source in Blender. But it's a simple little video, and we can definitely do that in Blender, no problem. We're going to hit delete and delete this default cube here. We're going to hit spacebar. We're going to type in plane, add a plane S100, and that will give us a nice big plane to work with. One to bring us into the front view here, and then I'm going to hit spacebar and type in camera and choose align camera to view. Oops. Which you should be able to do Control Alt number pad 0, but that doesn't seem to be working in this current version of Blender, which if I haven't said already is Blender 2.6. I'm going to grab the camera now on the Z-axis and lift it up a little bit. Now if we hit F12, you can see we have this nice little plane, which is actually very similar to what we have in the original video, maybe a little bit darker. But at this point I'm going to hit 7 on the number pad, Z to go into wireframe mode, space, type in text, and add text. Tab into edit mode and type in whatever you want. I'm doing films by Kris.com. And at this point, we would go to the font tab, and I would recommend changing the font out here, just choosing a different font. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to leave it at the default font. We're going to come down here to alignment. I'm going to choose center. And for extruding, I'm going to do 0.5 in this case. And for beveling, I'm going to do 0.2. No, that's too much. Let's do 0.05. Okay, let's rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis, and definitely made that too thick. Let's do 0.2 for that. Now we'll hit 1 to go back into the number or front view, 1 on the number pad, 5 to get out of perspective mode, and we're just going to make sure this is our plane right here, our ground plane. You can see parts, especially this Y, go below that plane. We're just going to grab on the Z-axis, so G and then Z, and move that up. Okay, so if we hit our 0 to go to our camera view and hit F12, there is our font. And it's kind of shaded out because the lighting is behind it. So you may think, oh, we're going to move the lighting in front of it. And that's not actually what we're going to do here. I'm going to go into top view, grab the lighting here, and put it right over top of the font. If we hit F12, you can still, it's still shaded, a little lighter on top. But we want that light right above because we want a shadow right below the words. But as far as the rest of the lighting, we're going to go to the World tab here, choose Ambient Occlusion, choose Multiply, and Environment Lighting. And if we hit F12 now, that slows down the rendering a little bit, but we have a nice looking words here with the shadows right below them. Might move the camera up a little bit, I think. But let's do that. Grab on the Z-axis just a little bit. There we go. I think that looks a little bit better. Now, the background here is gray. We could just make that white since our ground plane is pretty much white. But just in case you're using a different color, I'm going to show you how to make a kind of an ongoing horizon that never ends. We're just going to choose our horizon button here in the World tab, choose the little eyedropper here, and choose our ground plane somewhere close to the end there. And if we hit F12 again now, you can see it goes on forever. I think my original video you can actually see the horizon, but I actually like it better if the horizon goes on forever like this. So that's how you would do that, or at least one way of doing that. So next we're going to work on the animation, which you can spend forever tweaking, but we're going to try to do quickly here because my videos can only be 15 minutes long on YouTube. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the very last frame in the animation, choose our font here, I, and add a keyframe for location, rotation, and scale. Actually, take that back. We go to the last frame, and then we'll hit Shift and down arrow 3 times, and we're actually going to set a keyframe a second, so in this case 30 frames from the end, because we want the words to just sit there at the end for a second for people to read. I'm going to hit I and add that keyframe there. Now I'm also using the full 250 frames for this animation at the beginning, but I'm probably going to speed that up at the end because the animations I tend to do them too slow, and lots of times speeding them up looks better, so we're probably going to change the keyframes in the end. But for now we have that keyframe, and we're also going to go here to a modifier tab, we're going to add a modifier. Now, in the original video that I did in 3D Studio Max, I'm pretty sure I used a lattice deform to get the bending of the words at the end. But here, I'm actually going to say simple deform. And we're going to change that to bend instead of twist. And you can see how it's kind of bending in the middle on both sides. If we set this 1 here under limits to 0.5, you can see that you get it only on the left-hand side, which is what we want. And this deform factor controls how much it bends. And this limits, you can kind of move where it bends, but I think the default right there is pretty good. But for right now, we're going to set that to 0. And we're going to hover over that and hit I. And once it turns yellow, you set a keyframe for that. Next, I'm going to go down 20 frames. Oops. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn up that factor and set a keyframe. And then I'm going to go down 20 frames and set it back to 0 and set another keyframe. So now we have that animation of it going up and back down when it stops. Because if you remember in the animation, the words are going back and forth, and it's coming to a quick stop, so it's kind of bending up, kind of cartoony-like. So next, we need to get the animation of it moving back and forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down 30 frames or so, grab it on the x-axis. Oh, you know what? I'm not sure, but I want to make sure that right here I set a keyframe for the location, rotation, and scale as well. Next, like I said, we'll go down 30 frames, which is 1 second, grab it, x-axis, move it over here, set a keyframe, and go down another 30 frames. We're going to grab it on the y-axis, move it back a little bit, and then grab it on the y-axis and move it all the way over here. And we will set a keyframe there. Then we will grab it on the y-axis, move it back a little bit, and grab it on the x-axis and move it back over a little bit. And we're going to do this a number of times. Oh! Let's undo, Control-Z a few times. I was forgetting to change our keyframes here. Go down 3 frames. That's something sometimes you do with animations. You forget to do the simple stuff. Y-axis, grab on the x-axis, set a keyframe here. Go down 30 frames, grab it on the y-axis, grab it on the x-axis, set a keyframe. Go down 30 frames, grab it on the y-axis, grab it on the x-axis, set a keyframe. Going to go down 20 frames on this one, I think. No, we should do 30 frames. Grab it Y, move it back, grab it X, move it over. And I want it to start on the left-hand side. That's just how I want to start it. So even though we're not the first frame, doesn't matter. We're going to move those around here in a minute. I'm going to hit Alt-A, and you can see them going back and forth and getting closer. And then we had a little bit of a, it went past where I wanted it to go past. Let's, we must have forgot to set a keyframe somewhere. And what I'm actually going to do, just make sure it doesn't move at that point, I'm going to go here to, actually I'm going to change this one to dope sheet, move it up. And I'm going to lock this here, but the rotation here, I'm going to grab, or sorry, Shift D, move that right there. Oh, you know, I think I ended up grabbing it. There we go. There we go. Maybe now it will play right. It still gets a little bit of a movement there that I don't want. Once again, you can spend all day tweaking this, and I think the issue I'm having now is because I forgot to set a keyframe. Dang it. Okay. I'll just try to manually move it back. Grab it on the x-axis a little bit. Well, for the tutorial, it's not that important, but it might just be deforming. It's not perfect how I want, but like I said, spend all day tweaking it. But I do want the animation to be a little bit faster than that. So here we can go back to our dope sheet here. Unlock that. A to select all, and we can scale and make it smaller, which is actually making it faster. Then we can grab it and move it all so it starts in the first frame there. And as you can see, we went from 250 frames down to about 70 frames. So that might be too fast. Let's set our entire animation to 100 frames now. Yeah, that's a little too fast. And the animation there, the bending is wrong at the end there. Let's scale it up a little bit. Grab it. There we go. That looks better, I think. Definitely need to work on that bending some. But just to save time in the tutorial, I'm going to show you how to quickly do a motion blur. There are many ways to do motion blurs. So like if you render this out, there's no blur on those words that are moving. Now, as I said, there's different ways to motion blurs. Probably better ways are using compositor, but for a simple animation like this, you can do sample motion blur right here. Just check that. Turn up the number of samples. Now, the number of samples is the number of frames rendered for this single frame. So to render one frame, I actually have to render 5 frames. So if our total animation is 100 frames of animation, it's actually going to have to render out 500 frames to create that. And I'm going to turn the shutter speed up a little bit to 1. Now if I hit F12, you'll see it will render 5 frames, basically going back and forth in frames, and give you a blur like so. Not the best, blur, compositor, there's different things you can do there better, but for this animation, this will work fine. So that's about it. At this point, we can say change this to I like XVid. You can, change stuff in the encoding here if you want. But I'm just going to use the default. I'm going to call this car.avi. And I'm going to choose a full 1080p, so HD TV 1080p. And you can see that's a much higher resolution, takes longer to render. And once again, rendering 5 frames just for this single frame. Boom. And if we go down to, let's say, here and render out, you'll see as it's going back and forth, we're going to get a motion blur as well. So, once again, still need to tweak the animation a little bit, but I'll give you a render out of this here in a second and let you see what we came up with in the little time that we had. So thanks for watching. Joe Steger. I hope that this helped you some, and I hope that you all have a great day.